empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order Portal Madness Edition. The Buckeyes are coming off of a tough defeat to the Georgia Bulldogs in the Peach Bowl, and they are fighting to make this roster stronger and ready to rock for 2023. So we're going to talk about that. Huge tackle is in town visiting. We got a cornerback commitment tonight. We also have some guys that are taking off for greener pastures. So this roster is getting reformed right now, and there's probably going to be more movement to come. So there's never been a better time to be on BuckeyesScoop.com than right now, because with the portal, literally college football never sleeps. So it is exciting, and plus we have a second signing day. And before you know it, once you blink, it'll be time for spring ball. So all you Buckeye fans that are sad, fear not. Ryan Day and the coaching staff are going crazy in the portal to shape this roster to get ready to win a national title in 2023. That being said, as always, I am always very thankful and very grateful for you guys. You guys have a lot of places to look at for our entertainment, and you guys come to BuckeyesScoop.com because we bring the goods. We appreciate you guys. As always, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. If you could, comment down below, what position do we need to strengthen in the portal to make a title run in 2023? I love the team we have coming back. I think our offense will be absolutely insane. I think if Marvin and Emeka take an extra step, and then we get Trey Henderson back, I just don't know how you stop us. If we get one tackle on the portal, it is going to be absolutely fantastic. With that being said, I think, thoughts on the game, we'll get into that a little bit. I am going to bring in my good friend Nevada Buck. He just dialed in live from the wonderful West Coast. Nevada, are you with me?
I am with you. I've survived the Georgia game, surviving the portal madness, and ready to rock, man. It's an exciting time of the year. Can't wait.
I'm super excited about it. Again, I love owning a message board with you, because it's like with the portal, man, it never sleeps. I mean, it's like Las Vegas. If you're looking for something to talk about, something to do, there's never really a downtime. It's like when you go to Las Vegas, there's always something going on. Always a convention, always summer stuff, winter stuff, Super Bowl. That's what it's like owning one of these websites, because we legit you go, I took a couple hour nap, and it's like, oh God, 3 guys hit the portal. We got a guy visiting. We get a commitment. You can't really sleep. So it's crazy right now. We're going to start off with the news of, we got a new corner in the fold, Jihad Carter. Great name. For those of you that are True Lies fans, it reminds me of Crimson Jihad, which was the Holy War organization. So Jihad Carter is in the fold. We needed a corner. Nevada, your thoughts on adding one of the most sought after corners in the country to the Buckeyes DB group?
Well, I think he's the perfect type of guy that you're looking for. He's a guy who can play safety. He can play slot corner. He can hit. He's a high character guy. He can cover. I just think he's exactly the type of player that Knowles is looking for on this defense. And for Ohio State, that was looking for experience in the defensive backfield, I think they got it big time with Jihad. And I know the people there at Syracuse were sad to see him go, and it was a really big pickup for Ohio State. This is one of the guys that was on the board that you really needed to get, and they went out and got him. And I've been telling people Ohio State's been more active in the portal than any time I've ever seen them before. And this is the first kind of domino to fall, and I don't think it'll be the last. So very good day for Ohio State from a portal standpoint, and very big acquisition for 2023.
Yeah, and I love the portal, because here's one thing from back in my day 1,000 years ago when I played is, there's guys on the team that flat out can't play that are on scholarship. And now with the portal, you can rebuild the roster and remove those guys and go in and churn the bottom of the roster and get guys that can actually help you contribute. You had a great nugget. You scooped everybody on a left tackle from Washington State, Jarrett Kingston. He is visiting which is tomorrow, which is actually going to be today for those of you guys who are listening to this on Wednesday. 6'5", 302, 4-year starter at Washington State. Talk a little bit about the need and the pitch Justin Fry is giving to these tackles, because again, Paris and Dewan are both going to declare for the draft, 2 wide open spots. Talk a little bit about what Ryan Day and Justin Fry are pitching to these guys to potentially come in and help us in 2023.
Well, like you said, we've got a number of spots that are open on the line. You've got a guy like Jared who can play inside. He's played left guard. He's played left tackle. He can really play anywhere on the line. Veteran guy that's looking to go his final year, and he wants to win somewhere. He wants to go and have a chance to win a national championship. And I'm telling you, after the Peach Bowl, well, let's go back in time. After the Michigan game, I think people were kind of questioning where was Ohio State's place in the college football landscape? Where are we at? Where are the things? We've lost twice in a row to Michigan. We lost at home. We lost by 3 scores, even though it was closer than that. But so where do we kind of fit on the college football totem pole? And now, after the Peach Bowl, there's absolutely no doubt. You talk to anyone out there that follows college football, and Ohio State's in the rare air. I mean, it's generally considered to be a triumvirate of Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama that are just different than everybody else, and that's where we're at. So no, we didn't win the national championship this year, but let me tell you what, we're not going anywhere. We've reestablished our spot in terms of a premier elite college football team, and portal guys want to play for an elite college football team, especially when they've got limited eligibility left and they want to make a big impact and a big splash on the way out. And they're going to pitch hard to Kingston for that because he's got a USC offer, but I can tell you what, we're a heck of a lot closer to winning a national championship than USC is. And I think we've got a really good shot at them. And I think the next 24, 48 hours will tell the tale.
Yeah, and I would pitch Nick Petit Frere, 3rd round pick. He'll make the all-rookie team, had a fantastic rookie year, started every game for the Titans. Paris Johnson, top 10 pick, likely. Development is key. So whoever slots in at that left tackle spot is going to end up getting drafted top 3 rounds or so. You're going to be part of the best offense in college football in 2023 with Marvin Emeka, Trey Henderson. Again, I've told people, look, I know that everyone's down and out because we're losing CJ, but everybody was down and out when we lost Dwayne Haskins. Everybody was down and out when we lost Justin Fields. I think CJ is a great player, but I think that as long as we have Ryan Day, and more importantly, we have the infrastructure around the quarterback, I don't worry. I could go play quarterback and probably make first team all Big Ten if I get to throw to Mecca, Marv, hand it to Trey. Again, it's just silly how good the offense can be. And then, even with our backups, with our freshmen coming in, Brandon Ennis, Cornell Tate, I don't worry about our offense at all. I think our defense will be better in year 2 under Jim Knowles. I think they're gonna have some fire in their gut after what happened, at the very end of the Georgia game. So I think we're gonna be in good shape. So we got a super chat. And this is a great segue. Appreciate you, David. As always, you're always on here. You're the man. This is regarding some of the people that look like they're departing. Mason Arnold, the long snapper, he took off because we took a portal long snapper. J.K. Johnson was a mild surprise to enter the portal. Nevada, did you think J.K. could have been a 23 starter?
For me, no.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's one of those things where I think we've been hopeful about him, but he hasn't been getting it done. And I think I think / know that he had some really long heart-to-hearts with the defensive staff and with the coaching staff there at Ohio State, kind of asking about his future at Ohio State and where they saw him. And I think once he got that kind of, quote unquote job review, that he decided it was his best interest to try to seek, greener pastures elsewhere. And I respect that. As you talked about reshuffling the roster, that's sometimes what you have to do. And sometimes these things work out best for everybody involved. I don't think OSU saw him as part of the plans. And I think for him, he's going to look for a place where he can be part of the plans. And I wish him nothing but the best. Great kid. And hopefully he goes and balls out somewhere else, but it's not going to be at Ohio State.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wish him the best. I didn't think he played well when he had his opportunity. I kind of like, one of the big benefits of the portal that people don't talk about is when you have a guy who maybe thinks he's better than he is and he's disgruntled, that could be really rough on a team, a position group, a position coach. When a guy's known as a disgruntled entity, now he can leave, which is great because instead of having a guy who's got average talent sit around and be disgruntled and disrupt a room, now he can just go and maybe prove you wrong or not prove you wrong. You could prove him wrong. And, with JK, I never saw it. Nice kid, whatever. But, we were actively going after every single corner in the portal because that room needs upgraded. That room was not to Ohio State standard. It had 0 interceptions on the year. When we needed them the most, they gave us the least. I mean, they could have made some plays down the stretch that really would have helped us. But there's a reason why we were offering every portal that had a pulse, or every corner that had a pulse in the portal, and that's fine. Again, like, it's Ohio State. None of these guys should be entitled to a job. None of these guys should think, oh well, once this guy leaves, I'll be able to slide in and start. You got to have a lot of competition, and that room just flat out needs to be better. This is a great question. Also looks like Kenyatta Jackson, the defensive end, is going to enter the portal. We'll get into that in a second. I want to get the super chat so I don't forget it. All right, Jared DeVerta, Ryan Day is giving up play calling. Does Brian Hartline replace? I'm going to start on this one. I personally, Kirk Herbstreit made that report on ESPN on College Game Day. We've heard stuff like that. But I'll believe it when I see it with Ryan Day, just because he just got done carving up Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp's defense. I mean, he had probably the best play calling, masterpiece performance of his career, and for him to hand it off to Brian Hartline and Justin Fry, like I could see it maybe, but I also know that Ryan, a little bit of a control freak, and again, and it's not like he's not super talented. It's kind of like, does Michael Jordan want to be the number 2 option to, Horace Grant? I don't know. Probably not. But I mean, that's the rumor. That's what he's told Kirk Herbstreit. But I don't know. Like, this is one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when, when it's not cutting time against Notre Dame and it's a tight game. Does he trust Brian Hartline and Justin Fry to make the calls that he would make, or is he going to overwhelm them and take back the responsibilities? And that is not in no way a criticism, but when you're really good at something, you want to be the guy to make sure that if it all falls down and you lose, at least you can say, well, I was doing it. I didn't hand it off. I didn't give it to someone else and they screwed it up. And like, I think Ryan's the kind of guy where he'd rather have it all fall on him. But I'd love your take on that, Nevada, because we've been talking about this nonstop for the last month. You had a big nugget about Brian Hartline's ascension, Justin Fry's input on the game plan. I thought the game plan obviously was spectacular. Number 1 defense in the country, you score 41 points, 99.9% of the time you're going to win. But I'd love your thoughts on the Ryan Day potentially giving up the play calling duties as the OC.
Well, if you remember, again, we broke this 30 days ago. So,
Yeah.
a couple things to note. One, I don't think it's Ryan Day's decision. I think this is coming down from Gene Smith. I think they're coming to Ryan Day and saying, Ryan, you need to be more of an administrator. There's larger functions that go beyond just calling plays and just being. I think the concern from the powers that be at Ohio State is that Ryan's been a little bit too focused on the offense, a little bit too focused on on play calling and being involved in that kind of minutia when he needs to step back and take more of a CEO role. And as good as the play calling was in the Peach Bowl, you got to remember that was kind of an amalgam. That was kind of a enhanced game planning role for Brian Hartline, for Justin Fry, and they'd worked out a very detailed play sheet that Kevin Wilson was calling down to Ryan Day to choose from. So I think that's kind of the future of what's going to be happening. I think those guys are going to be involved. I think Ryan Day is going to have veto rights a la Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer never called a play at Ohio State, but he had veto rights all the time. And if he wanted to dial up that quarterback run or the triple option or whatever else he wanted to do, he had the power to do that, obviously. And I think that's really going to be the future for Ryan Day. I do think he's going to give it up, but I don't think he's going to give it up by his choice. I think it's going to be not mandated, but dictated to him from above. And I think it's probably the best for all involved.
Yeah, I think when you look around the country, you look at the top upper echelon programs. Even Nick Saban has learned to delegate. Give up. He's a great defensive play caller. Obviously, Bill Belichick has given up defensive calling the defensive game to his son. So it's hard to wear both hats. I always tell people it's kind of like if you're trying to be the CFO and the COO of like a Fortune 100 company. To have one guy do both roles is impossible. Instead of having two really good guys do each role independently, to be the offensive coordinator and the head coach, I think it's extremely difficult. I think it's kind of like being the offensive line coach and being the offensive coordinator. I think that's extremely difficult. So, Brian Hartline is ascending in his coaching career. He's a guy who's going to be a hot commodity. Teams are going to start offering him head coaching jobs. And I've personally told Brian Hartline, look, you have to start calling plays. You have to get your niche. You can't just be a receiver coach. Like, you got to kind of build your brand. Cause I'm like, every good coach in college football has either called offense or defense. And nowadays it's like 90% of the guys that are getting head coaching jobs have called the offense. So I'd get really good at that. I mean, you got 3 games to kind of get all the kinks out before you have to go to South Bend. That's why I kind of love how the schedule sets up, because we have a soft opening before we have to the monster showdown with Notre Dame next year. So if it's Devin Brown or Kyle McCord or whoever's playing quarterback, they'll have 3 games to get loose, get ready. You got your Youngstown States, you got your light schedule. So, I think that Notre Dame's very beatable next year with the talent that we have back. Especially if we get a portal offensive lineman, I'm going to feel great about it. But I'm excited to see what Ryan can do, where he can focus on being a head coach now instead of trying to run everything on offense and be the head coach. Because I think that you really have to have a guy that's really operating on both sides of the ball at equal efficiency. And when you're calling the offense, that's simply impossible, because you have to sit in the offensive staff room, you have to go through the game plans, you have to talk to previously Kevin Wilson and Justin Fry and Tony Alford and Brian Hartline and Corey Dennis, and go through what they like, what they want to do, what the plan is. You have to game plan, you have to watch a lot of film on you have to watch a lot of the defense that you're getting ready to call the game for. And now he's going to free up a lot of time for recruiting, for assisting with the defense, making sure that they're in lockstep, cleaning up a lot of the clerical stuff you have to do as a head coach. And I think it's going to be great for him. Nevada, with the portal stuff, Kenyatta Jackson, J.K. Johnson, I'm sure there's going to be more. Javonte Jean-Baptiste left for a 6-year elsewhere. Any real loss there? I don't see any. I think guys just want to go play, and these guys probably didn't have future roles. But any guys to give you any consternation that they're gone now?
Well, again, I think these things in general work out. I'm trying to think about the portal guy that left, that we're really kind of bemoaning the fact that he left. And obviously you've got Joe Burrow, but we had Dwayne Haskins' 50 touchdown passes to kind of comfort us during that time. And so, I think these things are really probably best for all involved. And for Ohio State, if you're asking me, for 2023, who has to be better for us to win the national championship, and who's going to be part of that core group to kind of lead us to victory, were any of those names guys that would be on my list? And the answer is no. So from my standpoint, I think that fans have got to kind of recalibrate how they look at the roster, how they evaluate depth, how they evaluate where we have holes or where we don't have holes. Because with the portal, you can fill your holes instantly. It's instantaneous, open season college football free agency for every player that still has eligibility. So there's no reason to be down a defensive end or an offensive tackle or a cornerback, because you can always go find one. And that is a change. That is different. It's different from the old days of looking at the depth chart and filling in the 3 deep and saying, well, when this guy goes, well, this guy will step up. And it's not that way anymore. And guys have got to adjust to it as well, because if you're not better, not only than the guy in front of you and the guys behind you, but then anybody who's available to come, then you're not going to get the starting job. And I think that's going to be an adjustment for players, and it's going to be an adjustment for fans as we're evaluating this thing. But for Ohio State, we're well positioned to take advantage of this. And so none of these moves particularly trouble me or give me any consternation. I just think it's a natural way of the order of the way it is now in college football 2023.
Yeah, and I think that the way that Ryan's been really aggressive in the portal, specifically at the quarterback position, is something that it's gonna not quote cost us, but I think it's something that will give pause to some of these guys, especially at the quarterback position, that like Dylan Raiola, that commit 2 years in advance, because Ryan Day isn't going to settle for average at the quarterback position. So if he's not in love with what he has in the room, he's shown he's going to shop in the portal. Like, he went after Malik Willis when he was at Liberty. He went after Drake May. Imagine Drake May on this offense with our 2 receivers. I mean, we'd have by far the best offense maybe of all time, because he's probably going to be the top pick of the draft, him or Caleb Williams. So, again, the way Ryan is really pushing to build this roster, he's an NFL guy. I think he's pretty emotionless when it comes to the roster and keeping, there's the roster's never really set. It's a lot like an NFL team. Like there's guys that make the team week 1 that aren't there week 2. And there's guys that, that half the roster could turn over from week 1 to week 17 with injuries and just with the natural player trend. Like I was on teams where, the roster stalls change seemingly every week. The guys that were sitting next to me on the previous week were gone, and there were new guys the next week. So that's just kind of how it is in big time football now. And honestly, I don't mind it. I think guys have to stay sharp. I think guys can't just sit around and oh, I got beat out, so I'm going to take the year off. Because Ryan Day and Mark Pantini, these guys are going after kids. They're going after kids. Justin Fry's going after kids, and it's not it's nothing against those guys, but those guys are coaching for their lives. They're coaching for their families. They're for their stability, and you have to keep bringing in good players, and you have to keep deleting players that can't play. And that's part of college football. Sometimes guys get to college, they might be heralded guys, and then you find out they can't play, or they're distracted off the field, or they don't go to class, or they're malcontents, or whatever. So you got to keep trying to reshuffle and reshape those guys. And again, if we land this tackle, I'll feel great about it. Getting a corner, I feel great about that. And there's going to be more guys hopping in the portal over the next week or two, and then there's going to be another big chunk of them coming in spring. You got to remember Joe Burrow went through spring balls in Ohio State Buckeye, left after spring. So, there's going to be a whole other chunk of reshuffling coming right after spring ball when there's the next portal window. So it never stops. It's really exciting. Nevada, let's get into the game a little bit. We haven't done a podcast since the game ended. Obviously, we took a little break. But your thoughts on Ohio State's effort versus Georgia? I was proud of the guys. I thought they fought. They played hard. Everyone's sad and miserable, and they blame Jim Knowles and whoever. But it's like we're a field goal kick away from being in the Natty and getting ready to go to Los Angeles. So I can't really blame Jim when it's a shootout and it's that close and. We just miss a kick. But what are your thoughts on the game after you've had a few days to digest it?
Well, I think for people that listened to our podcast before the game, we were one of the few podcasts and one of the few people that were going out there predicting that Ohio State was going to play better than expected. I said that from day one on that. I thought Ohio State was great in these spots. Ohio State had been terrific as an underdog, 16-4 in the last 20, now 17-4 in the last 21. They'd cover the spread. They'd outperformed expectations, and boy, they outperformed everybody's expectations but mine. I really thought that they could win the game. I thought that they would win the game. They came within a kick of winning the game, but boy, they gave Georgia everything they wanted. I couldn't have been more impressed with Ryan Day's fire and enthusiasm, and I love that version of Ryan Day. I think and hope and pray that that's the version of Ryan Day that we're going to get going forward, because I think that's who he is, and I think that's who he needs to be. He doesn't need to be calm, cool, and collected. I loved his enthusiasm, and he was working the refs and working the team and fired up and jumping around, and love seeing it. Love seeing CJ. We've been talking about this ad nauseum. Anybody who's listening to our podcast is probably going, "Why did Kirk and Nevada keep talking about CJ Stroud tucking the ball and running?" Well, you saw why we talked about that, because it instantaneously took an Ohio State offense to a different level. Georgia had no answer. It was a shame. I don't want to get into the complaining about the refs thing, so I'll just focus on one thing. I don't know how the Marvin Harrison thing wasn't a penalty. It was called a penalty on the field. It's exactly the type of hits that they're trying to take out of the game. He was defenseless. It was forcible. It was to the head and neck area. It knocked him out of the game. And frankly, that singular play, I think anybody that watched the game, and I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of media people, a lot of big-time college people, big-time NFL guys, and they all say, look, if he doesn't go out, Ohio State wins the game. Georgia had no answer for him. He was on pace for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, gets knocked out on a bad hit, and the worst of all worlds, we don't even get the personal foul, which would have been almost a certain touchdown. And so, I hate to say it, but I think we got screwed. I think we got screwed by a bad review once again, much like in 2019. But to me, this one was even worse. And I feel sick about it from that standpoint. But, just proud of the effort, proud of Ryan Day, proud of C.J. Stroud. And I think Ohio State is well poised to kind of ascend back to the top in 2023. And couldn't be more optimistic about the future. And was, like I said, was sad for a little bit, but now just looking forward, really, really excited, really, really proud. Will not watch a minute of the TCU Georgia game because I don't give a whatever about who wins that game. But can't wait for 2023, and let's get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I'm like. I mean, on BuckeyesCube.com, we've already turned the page. We're onto the transfer portal, projecting the spring ball depth charts, who could be coming in. We've got the Army All-American Bowl going on down in San Antonio right now. It's got Brandon Ennis, Luke Montgomery, Cardinal Tate. Like, if you look at some of the talent we have coming in, especially offensively, that we're going to add to the offense, Brandon Ennis, Cardinal Tate with Marvin and Emeka and Julian. Like, I think that there's no reason to not be extremely excited about what we have coming back in 23. I think that Ryan is going to push these two young quarterbacks. Again, people were like, how are we going to replace Haskins? We get Justin Fields. How are we going to replace Fields? We get CJ Stroud. How are we going to replace Stroud? I think it's going to be Devin Brown, and I'm really excited about that kid. I mean, I think he's the deal. I think Kyle McCord takes the first snap of spring ball. I think they battle it out. I think they potentially make Kyle McCord the opening day starter because he's a year older. But I'm telling you, like, I think Devin Brown is the guy who's the truth, and he's the guy who I've heard the most about inside the Woody Hayes. So I'm really, really excited about that kid. For me, I just, I laughed when there were people picking us to get blown out, especially people that work, and cover Ohio State, because it just proves that they don't really study film. They don't really follow analytics numbers. The two numbers I kept saying is, look, they gave up 500 yards the last game they played against LSU, and they only had 23 sacks on the season. So, people are like, oh my God, are we going to be able to block Georgia? I'm like, well, I mean, everybody else did. I mean, 23 sacks over 12 games, that's 2 a game, very manageable. Again, Jim Knowles, his last year at Oklahoma State had 57 sacks, so that led the nation. So it kind of shows you the discrepancy in getting after the quarterback. And I was like, look, if we have a plan, they have one guy you have to stop, 88, Jalen Carter. We did a great job on him. But if you tempo him, you change the protections in terms of, do some rollouts, do some sprint outs. Don't just have like a static pocket where you essentially you run an empty set where it's just five offensive linemen blocking and you can't really get after that guy. And Ryan did do that. Mitch Rossi played like an absolute monster. And it really kind of highlighted how poorly we've recruited tailback wise, because I'm like, look, we got to put a tight end in it to pass block, and when we had Ezekiel, we didn't have to do that. So I'll get into that later. But I thought Mitch Rossi at tailback was great just because he is really adept at pass blocking. He's very physical. He played a great game, helping, chipping, stopping any of the leaks that came in on the O-line. Because they had to help Matt Jones. Matt Jones played banged up. He had a very heavy ankle tape on his right ankle. So now that gets to heal up. Hopefully he comes back for year 6. But I just, I thought Georgia was good. I mean, obviously the defending champions, number one. I kept saying, I don't think they're anywhere near as good as the year before. The pass rush isn't there. Just statistically, they had about half as many sacks as they did the year before. And they lost, 15 guys that got drafted into the NFL draft, which is the record. I mean, it broke Ohio State's 2004 draft that had 14 draft picks. So I know how talented that 03 Ohio State team was. It was the year after they beat the Miami Hurricanes. So I knew that there was a talent drain at Georgia. Now, obviously, they're still likely to win a second national championship because they got the layup with TCU. TCU was able to defeat Michigan. But I didn't see, with Paris and DeJuan, I thought we had great pass blocking tackles. I thought CJ would step up. And again, Nevada and I have been crowing about CJ running because you see what it did for the game plan. You see how it opened it up. I mean, CJ literally almost won the game at the very end because of a scramble. And again, that's so hard to account for. And when a guy consistently will run, it can carry to me. I mean, Justin Fields ran for 1,100 yards in the NFL with the worst skill position and the worst offensive line. And they were actually decent and they beat teams they shouldn't have because of Justin running. Now, is that sustainable? I don't know. Justin got dinged up a little bit, but if you slide and you take care of yourself, it's absolutely sustainable. We're not saying be a battering ram and run up in the A gap and get hit by 2 linebackers and a nose guard. We're saying, hey, if they're running off in man coverage and nobody sees you, go run and get 10 yards. Go get 8 yards. Make it 2nd and 2, because 2nd and 2 is a killer for a defense because essentially you're going to give a first down. I've lived it. I've seen it. And kudos to CJ. He played the best game of his career when we needed him the most. And, he's going to be off to the NFL and good luck to him. But I'm excited about Devin Brown. I'm excited about see what Kyle McCord can do. And again, with Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and Todd Fitch and, most importantly with Marvin Harrison and Emeka Ibuka, Julian Fleming, potentially Cade Stover, Trey Henderson, I don't worry about our quarterback position because anybody we put back there is going to be really, really good just because you're going to have maybe the greatest array of weapons that we've ever had in Ohio State history, especially if Cade Stover comes back and your two receivers are Emeka, Marvin, your tailback is Trey. I'm not even talking about the backups, which are also extremely deep. And then you have Cade as your outlet. I mean, that's as good as we've ever had, really. So I'm excited about these guys. Nevada, it's a short ways away before winter conditioning starts. What are your thoughts going forward? How much more activity do you think we'll see in the portal from Ohio State, both coming and going?
Oh, I think it's going to be a ton. I think it's going to be a ton. What you remember, we've got a number of things all hitting at the same time. We've got potential early entrants to the NFL. Who's going, who's staying. We've got portal guys going out. We've got portal guys going in. Then you've got spring ball. Then you've got another window opening for the portal. Another bunch of Ohio State guys going out. Another bunch of guys coming back in. I mean, it's the roster. I think the roster could be 20 guys different between now and the fall. I mean, it could be that radically different. And, with the incoming freshmen, maybe 30 guys or 40 guys. So it's going to be a wild and crazy time. It's just the new way of doing college football. And, for Ohio State, we're well positioned to take advantage of that. And, the game is dominant. College football right now, if you really boil it down to what is the game dominated by? The game is dominated by quarterbacks and wide receivers. That's who dominates the game of college football. And if you think about it for Ohio State, you kind of go, well, what's Ohio State's core competency? What are they best at recruiting? You kind of go, well, probably quarterbacks and wide receivers. And that is the reason why Ohio State is so good and is going to continue to be so good, because you've got Ryan Day, because you've got Brian Hartline, because you have elite recruiting, elite development at the two most important positions by 10 times on the football field in college football. And I think that's why I'm so optimistic about the future and so excited about seeing the quarterback derby between McCord and Devin Brown. You guys know I like Devin Brown a lot, but look, if Kyle McCord goes out there and balls out and beats them out, dude, I'll have the McCord jersey on and be rooting him on next year. I'll just know that we're gonna have one darn good quarterback. And the one built-in advantage McCord has is he was high school teammates with Marvin Harrison, so he's very familiar with the best wide receiver in college football. So that's certainly a leg up all the way around. So it's going to be a heck of a battle, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think whoever is in that spot is going to be really good. And, could there be a portal guy? I never, think that we wouldn't add somebody. Again, Joe Burrow left after spring ball, started at LSU. Now that's really outside. That's probably a lot later than Ryan Day would like. But, if somebody comes and shows up, again, the thing that people have to remember is the coaching carousel has not stopped spinning. It doesn't stop spinning until even after signing day. I mean, Sam Drayton left as the running backs coach after signing day, and it's if someone takes a head coaching job or somebody goes to the NFL, and the quarterbacks, you see every time there's a new head coach at a prominent job like Luke Fickell, Graham Mertz is in the portal within 5 minutes. So as these coaches start moving around and shuffling around, there's going to be more quarterbacks available. So again, I'm not projecting that we're going to take a guy, but if there's a guy who's out there that Ryan Day thinks is better than what's in the room, Ryan Day is absolutely going to go after him. Again, like I'm very strong conviction that we went after Drake May, and then all of a sudden, Dylan Raiola leaves because he wasn't comfortable. And it's like and I'm fine with that because I think Ryan every year is going to try to make that room as strong as possible, and he's not going to be beholden to a guy who's not coming here till 2024 because that guy might be better than me, or are you gonna do that to me when I get there? And it's like with Ryan, he just doesn't care. He wants to make the team as strong as possible, and I'm good with that. Look, if I'm the starting left tackle at Ohio State, and then all of a sudden Orlando Pace is supporting bringing Orlando Pace, then God bless him. And then all of a sudden I'm riding the pine, or I got to bump down to guard or center or whatever. Like, that's just how it is. That's how big boy football is. I mean, you look at what Alabama did in the portal, was just unbelievable. They got their starting left tackle, their starting running back. They got JMO last year. The big boys are going to be refurbishing that roster with some portal. So I don't know. I love the mentality. If we get this left tackle from Wazoo, I'll be really excited about him. Getting a corner is huge. And again, you can't really worry about people's feelings and upsetting the locker room, because again, our roster and college football is just like the NFL now. Like, I mean, you see guys get drafted. Again, I know, Nevada's a diehard Packers fan, and, they use the first round pick on Jordan Love, and Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure, was not happy about that when T. Higgins was sitting there, but that's just kind of how they believe in reshaping the roster. And with, how it is now, if there's a guy that you think might be better, or a guy that can help you down the road or whatever. I mean, basically with the portal with Ohio State, most of these kids are coming here. They're anticipating they're either going to start or they're going to be in the mix. They're not coming here to be a depth guy for 2 years, then maybe start. So, like Jahad Carter, I mean, he's thinking he's got to start opposite Denzel Burke next year, and he's going to be fighting Jordan Hancock. And, with JK taking off, I mean, really, it's going to be a pretty short fight. But yeah, I mean, Nevada, your thoughts on kind of the NFL roster management that Ryan Day has been exuding, and maybe not, caring about the feelings of the players, which again, I don't care about the feelings of the players at all, because again, once they get to the NFL, man, it is like they're going to try to bring in new guys to improve that roster every single day. And I think that's the mentality you have to have in college football now.
Well, I think it's somewhere in between. I think with Ryan Day, I mean, clearly he's preached kind of a more of a family type of atmosphere, and I don't know if he's quite as ruthless as we want him to be. Having said that, I think he's kind of evolving his viewpoint on this thing. Whereas before, I think that they would have been ultra selective in terms of the portal. I think now they're just saying, look, it better be a clear upgrade, but if there's a clear upgrade available, we're going to go do it. So it probably lays somewhere between those 2 points. But that's what you have to do in college football. It's a results-oriented business. It's about winning. It's about winning now. People don't want to hear about 5 years from now, or something. Especially the way the rosters move, and it's 3 years and out, which is amazing that rule still exists in the NFL. Thank goodness that's a collectively bargained type of mandate from the union and the NFL owners. But look, college football's changing. Ryan Day's got to change with it, but I think we're well positioned to embrace those changes and continue to prosper.
Yeah, I think that obviously that they need to put in some sort of a mandate that can limit what's going on right now. But yeah, as long as it's like this, man, you just got to keep cranking. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like losing Kenyatta Jackson, that stings. That's probably the one guy that I think that could have contributed next year. I don't think JK could have, maybe other than a special teamer, but that's just part of big time ball now. I mean, I think you got a shot for a DN, but what do you do when you've got JT and Jack? I think sometimes when we don't get a guy, like I remember last year, there was a tackle that was a freshman All-American from Florida International University who ended up going to LSU. And, we got beat down because we didn't get him. And I was like, well, what? Is he going to play over Paris or Dewan? There's no chance. These guys that are in the portal, they want a guaranteed starting spot promised to them. We lost the left tackle from Rhode Island who went to Oregon. And, I watched his film. I didn't think he was very good. I know he graded out high on PFF, but he's blocking guys from Maine and whatever, Boston U or whoever, a bunch of hockey schools. So when a guy from Rhode Island grades out high, you always wonder, does that translate to Big Ten football? Does it translate to blocking Michigan and Georgia? And I didn't think it did. I saw the kid. He didn't look like he's ever been in the weight room before. He went off to Oregon. God bless him. He might turn into Jonathan Ogden, but I don't think so. And the kid from LSU really didn't do much. The kid that we lost that had all the offers was a freshman All-American. Because, again, you got to remember, a lot of these guys dominate much, much, much weaker competition than they're going to see in the Big Ten. Like Northwestern, if they were in the conference that Rhode Island was in, they'd be like Mountain Union. They'd go 12-0 and win the conference for 20 straight years. So I don't always think that when we lose a guy that it's a total loss. Nevada, as we get into spring and Ryan Day, There's one big thing that broke and has been breaking. Jim Harbaugh shopping himself to the National Football League is something that is, it seems to be like a reoccurring thing. It's almost like Christmas. It happens every year about this time. But he, Carolina Panthers, he met with David Tepper, the owner, who's actually the richest owner in the NFL. Most people probably don't know that. So he's got deep pockets. He's got a lot of draft pick capital. They traded Christian McCaffrey. They kind of did a rebuild where they're shipping guys off. They've got some good young players, but they have a ton of draft capital. So, and there's other teams going after Harbaugh. What are your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh shopping for the NFL? And what percent do you have of him being the head coach when we play Michigan next year?
Well, look, I've been wrong on Harbaugh before, so let me just preface anything that I say by saying anytime I'm trying to predict what that Fruit Loop is going to do, I've been wrong. So, having said that, does it make sense to me that he leaves? Yes. Do I think he wants to leave? I know he does. Do I think he's talking to teams? I know he is. Do I know what the price of poker is for Jim Harbaugh? Yes, I do. What is that, Nevada? $20 million a year. Yes, that's the price for Jim Harbaugh. And so now, immediately, what that kind of sends me though, I think about that stuff because again, we could talk all night about Harbaugh and what it's gonna, where's it gonna be, what's he gonna do. But I think about it, I'm like, if Jim Harbaugh is worth $20 million a year, what's Ryan Day worth? And what are they gonna have to pay Ryan Day to keep him? And what does that say for Ohio State and his future as an Ohio State football coach? Because look, he can love Ohio State all he wants, but if you have a chance to move from $7-8 million a year or whatever it is to 20 or to 25, like some of the other premier guys are asking for, that's a lot of money. And before anybody just goes, oh no, that's a crazy number, that would never happen. Remember, these teams are just going crazy in value right now. So you've got Denver that sold for
$6 billion,
$4 million.
$4 billion,
Yeah,
$4
$4 million. Yeah, you've got the Washington Redskins that are probably going to go for $7 billion. No. So, like, when you've got prices like that, paying your head coach $20 million a year probably makes a lot of sense. So, look, if I had to bet, and I am a gambler and I bet all the time. So, would I bet on Jim Harbaugh being the head coach at Michigan next year? Nope, I bet against that. Do I think it's going to be Carolina or do I think it's going to be Denver? Not sure. But I can tell you, I think the price is going to be right around $20 million a year. And I think he's going to go to the NFL, and then we'll see what Michigan does with the head coaching job. I'd be like, hey, let's go to Matt Campbell or something like that. And they'll probably go hire Mike Cart, who has no head coaching experience, because that's such a Michigan thing to do. So I think that the Harbaugh had a nice little 2-year run where he had a bunch of veteran guys and was able to get a couple wins over Ohio State. So it's a perfect time for him to bolt, and I think that's what he'll do. But we'll see.
I think that when the guy is interviewing with the Vikings on National Signing Day last year, I mean that's the most insulting thing I've ever seen in the history of college football, and it shows how little he thinks of Michigan. Of the administration there, because again, he's a Michigan guy. He played for Bo Schembechler. He's a tried and true Michigan Wolverine. But I mean, something is amiss there that he would do something that insulting. That he's interviewing with Ziggy Wolf on signing day, and ultimately they didn't go with him. But I think for some of these guys that are David Tepper, he wants a tough team, an organized team, a team that has a good offensive line. Harbaugh's went to the Super Bowl. Gone to the college football playoff. He's a winner. He's a guy that he knows how to get stuff done. He hasn't won the big ring yet, but he's gotten close, which is a lot better than Matt Rule had ever done, or some of these other guys that the Panthers have hired. And it's going to be fascinating to see if because I think that Denver job, outside of obviously making a fortune, with the $20 million a year, is just an albatross because of the Russell Wilson trade. Because not only do you have to pay Russell $50 million a year for the next 6 years, but you also don't have any draft picks for the next 2. You don't have a first rounder for 2 years. You don't have second rounders. They just emptied the coffers, going all in on Russell Wilson, which is just proved to be a cataclysmic error. Which is why when you're going to empty the tank for a guy, he better at least be young because Russell's not even that young. He's getting older and he just played terribly this year. But I think Harbaugh, that Carolina job is a lot more appetizing because they traded McCaffrey, they got a second and 2/3 for him, so that's decent capital. So this year going into the draft, they got a first round pick, they got 2 2s. I think they have a 3 and then 2 4s. And then the next year they have multiple mid round picks. So when you're looking at a roster and you're looking at a rebuild, like you want to see what kind of capital am I dealing with from an NFL draft standpoint? Can I make a trade? Do I have enough guys? If there's a quarterback out there that I really want, can I go get him? Can I trade up in the draft? If there's a guy that, because next year is kind of the year, I think that Carolina will probably tank again this year and aim for bringing Drake May home because Drake May is the projected number 1 pick, him or Caleb Williams. I don't know if they love either of the quarterbacks, if they love CJ or Will Levis or Bryce Young that are in the draft. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. I think that, again, you just look at it's like Granny Nevada says, look at what they do, not what they say. It's like when a guy's interviewing with Minnesota on signing day and then, there's all these open rumors because generally like when these rumors pop up on Pro Football Talk and ESPN, it's generally Jim Harbaugh's agent or someone's agent that are putting those out, that's leaking that, hey, that he met with David Tepper and the Broncos are offered him a fortune. And again, like I think if you're Harbaugh and you're kind of one of the top 3 or 4 candidates for NFL jobs, you wait until the very end of the Super Bowl and you kind of see, does anybody else move? Does anybody go to college? Does anybody get fired unexpectedly? Because that's happened before too, where a guy that he had a nice year and the owner's upset and he just doesn't want to pay him and he fires a guy. So does anybody retire? Again, it's I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what his timeline is. Obviously going into having the early signing day is one of those things where it kind of screws the kids that signed early at Michigan if they potentially were really into playing for Jim Harbaugh because. That's what I always would tell kids when they were getting recruited. Look, go to the school you want to go to. Don't go to a coach. Don't go to a position coach, especially because those guys will leave because Jim Harbaugh could go to the NFL and take their fantastic O-line coach, Sharon Moore, with them and make him the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers, or whoever I'm sure he'd take his nephew, Jay Harbaugh, who's the tight ends coach. So, again, I just, would Mike Hart be the next head coach in Nevada? If you're the chancellor, if you're Ward Maynor, you're the athletic director at Michigan, who do you target if Jim Harbaugh moves on to the NFL?
Ryan Day. Go get Ryan Day from. Yes, I go, man. Put a dagger through Ohio State's heart, man. I go offer Ryan Day like $50 million a year. Have him go there and just have him do it like the day after signing day. Just go there and just completely pull out the Ohio State shirt, throw it on the ground, throw on the Michigan thing, and just do the dance. That's what I would do.
Would you like? Would you like invite Brutus and like spray paint him like the NWO and put like a big like yellow spray paint, put a big giant M on Brutus's back?
Just pile drive him. I would just take his heart out. But no, I mean, look, they're the Michigan head coaching job. Like I said, I hate even wasting air talking about what Harbaugh's going to do because that guy he's such a flake, and none of us have really any idea what he's capable of. But like you said, he's been to a Super Bowl as a coach. His brother is an ultra successful NFL coach, and so does it make sense for him to do it? Sure, but that's probably the reason why he won't. But we'll watch and see. Hopefully, we can hold on to our guys, keep our staff together as much as possible, and go beat those guys next year and right the wrongs of the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I totally agree about Ryan Day's value. I think getting him for $9 million is as big of a number as that sounds. In the coaching world, that's a bargain, in my opinion. I think for a guy who's that young, who's a quarterback guru, I think that's an outstanding deal for Ohio State. I know people, they balk and they say, oh, he didn't win a national title, he didn't win the Big Ten, did he beat Michigan? But I'm like, look, if we lost that guy, it would sting. Because the thing about Ryan is as long as we have him, we're always going to have fantastic quarterback play. That was a big thing with Dylan Raiola. That's why I committed so early. He's like, well, I know with Ryan, I'll be developed to go to the NFL. Because being a quarterback nowadays is big business. Big, huge business. So when you have a guy who has produced 3 straight first-round picks once CJ hits the league, I mean, how do you how do you not want to sign up to play for that? How do you not want to transfer portal that? How do you not want to commit to that as the number one overall player? I mean, you got to remember he bagged Quinn Ewers number one overall, Dylan Raiola number one overall, and I think that the hard part is like when it's such a big business, those kids don't want to wait around for 2 years to play. They have to start playing immediately wherever they're at and start that NFL clock and get on that projection because when they're that super talented and super trained, all they got to do is just if they put average film up, they're probably going to go in the first round, second round at worst. Will Levis, who was at Kentucky this year, very average numbers, but people are projecting him potentially to be the number one overall pick over CJ, over Bryce Young, because a lot of these scouts are like, well, imagine Will Levis at Ohio State. Imagine Will Levis at Bama. Imagine him with that O-line and those running backs and Marvin Harrison and Emeka. Like, he's at Kentucky. What do you expect? So, like, the Josh Allen effect is in full effect where they love intangibles, they love height, they love arm strength. And then, if a guy doesn't produce numbers-wise versus a guy like CJ who does, they say, well, imagine if he had those weapons and he played in the Big Ten and he got to play Indiana and Rutgers and throw it to Emeka and Marvin and these monsters and Garrett Wilson and all that. So I think that when you're a quarterback, you got to go play. I think that's why Dylan Raiola, he's going to end up at either Georgia or Nebraska. Whatever team times up quarterback wise, whatever team. I think NIL is a very small part of the equation in that one. I think it's where can I start immediately? Where can I be promised to be the starting quarterback the day I get there? That's what drove Quinn Ewers to Texas. They promised he'd be the starter. Sure as can be. Hudson Card hits the portal, goes to Purdue. Quinn starts. He's got 1 year left at Texas. He's going to go pro. And I think that's just kind of how it works now. And I think with Ryan Day and the way we recruit quarterbacks, like you're going to find guys that are through 2 years that are good players that are going to want to join Ohio State and throw it to, whatever avalanche of receivers we have between Marvin, between Emeka, then you got Brandon Ennis, and you have JJ Smith. You just have this outstanding crew of receivers coming in, and that's appetizing. If I'm a quarterback and I can throw it to JJ Smith and Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate, I'm taking that all day, every day, because those guys are absolute freaks and super excited to see what they do in Ohio State uniform. Nevada, we've been going for about an hour. Any closing thoughts? We're going to wrap this thing up. We appreciate all you guys being on here. Fantastic show. Nevada, your thoughts, closing time, the direction of the program, the portal, how absolutely insane BuckeyeScoop.com's message board is right now, because it is, I've never seen it refresh as fast as it is right now in terms of new posts and new news and stuff, but just your thoughts on the general state of the program and BuckeyeScoop.com.
Yeah, obviously things are popping, I think for Ohio State fans, the most exciting thing really is just, I think we've kind of found our swagger back, and as disappointing as that Georgia game, was, I really do, and again, I may be in the minority here. I was in the minority. I've been in the minority on a lot of positions over time. I was on the minority on I think Trey Sermon is way better than Master Teague. He's got to get the carries, and I took crap for that one forever and ever and ever. But I think Jim Knowles is better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. I think the defense made some solid improvements this year. The defense, reduced the number of points per game from 22 to 20. They reduced the number of yards per game from 370 to 320. They reduced the third down conversions by opponents went from 42% of the time in 2021 teams converted third down to 29% this year. 29% is the second lowest in the past 25 years for Ohio State defensively. That's how good, that's how dramatic of an improvement that was. So despite the disappointment of the last couple of games and a handful of big plays, it was really 5 or 6 big plays that kind of skewed things over the last 2 games. The Ohio State defense made solid progress this year with generally the same players they had in 2021. I expect the improvement to continue on. It better continue on in 2023. But I think he's a lot better. I don't mind being on an island on this one. I was on an island for years on Jim Haycock, who people just used to just savage. And I feel good about the thing. I think Knowles is better than people want to get it. So I guess my closing statement to Buckeye fans would be, I hear all the Jim Knowles criticism from the usual people, and I'm not buying it. He's not as bad as you're making him out to be. And I really think you've got to take a step back, look at the improvements in key areas, not just little improvements, but massive improvements. And I look for that to expect to continue in 2023 and beyond. So lots to be optimistic about, lots of things happening, and appreciate everybody's support.
Well, here's the question, because I think outside of, you got to have at least 2 years at Ohio State to qualify for this. But because I was going to say, outside of Jeff Hafley, has there ever been an offensive or a defensive coordinator who's been beloved for his entire tenure at Ohio State?
Oh
I'm
no,
asking.
they're all hated.
I
They're all
mean,
hated. I mean, Tom Herman was just hated. They called him Mensa. Remember, they did call it really derisively.
oh,
Oh yeah, Mensa. Nice play call, Mensa. And
Jim Bowman, dude. Jim Bowman,
oh
10 years. Oh
oh
my
well,
God.
well yeah, he was thoroughly savage. But no, it kind of comes with the territory. But I just think as Ohio State fans and as members of the Buckeye Scoop Board, we just got to be better than that. We can't be just like reactionary calling for guys to be fired every year. I mean, after 1 year, literally, you have seemingly serious people calling for him to be fired, and I'm just like, guys, let's just take a step back, let's take a deep breath, see what's going on. Does recruiting need to be better? Certainly. Do we need to cut down on some of the big plays? Absolutely. Do we need to get more than 0 interceptions by our cornerbacks? Most definitely. But fire Jim Knowles, replace him with Jim Leonard, the guy that we hung 52 on this year. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, let's just be better. Let's just try to be calm and rational fans in a very irrational time. But let's be better than that. But like this one, I don't mind being on an island on this one. I'm definitely not Team Knowles because of anything other than I think he came in with the mandate to improve the defense, and he improved the defense. No, the defense wasn't lights out the entire game against Georgia, but it was good for a big portion of the game. And then Lathan Ransom slipped, and hopefully he doesn't slip next year, and hopefully the Buckeyes go on and get it done, and I think they will. So like I said, lots to be optimistic about.
Yeah, and I like Jim Knowles. I think he does a really good job. I think that the turnaround was massive this year. I think that, the biggest thing is we just have to find more dynamic pass rush. Like, I think that we need Jack Story has to take a big step next year. I think JT has to take a big step next year. Like, I think JT, his overall play gets buoyed by the Penn State game because he was so dominant, and it was a national player of the week and just maybe the best defensive end performance in the history of college football in one game. So, but if you delete that and you look at the full body of work, like, I think that he needs to make a bigger impact. I think that, Zach Harrison had a career year. I mean, I've been as critical as anybody of Zach. I think he was fantastic this year, deservedly all Big Ten. Really played well. But again, like, I think that the thing that stops this from being a supercharged type defense is we don't have, I can't even say a Chase Young or a Bosa, because those guys you can't say, hey, we need to go recruit a first ballot Hall of Famer like Nick Bosa, but that's the kind of guy that we really need to be, to take this thing to the next level, to make, it easier for the corners to get picks, because, those guys are, we have to have a pressure player, and maybe Mike Hall can take that step and be an interior pressure player. Maybe Ty Lee can start next year and be a pressure player. Maybe Jack, if he can play, as a true defensive end, and less as the hybrid Jack role where he's kind of playing linebacker, can be more of a pressure player. I don't know, but somebody has to do it. I think JT could make a big leap. I think that, a lot of these guys, like Chase Young, made a huge leap from his sophomore year, where he was dinged up. He was just kind of average, to his junior year, where he was the best player in the entire country. I think one of those guys has to step up, and you have to go get after this quarterback. And I also think that year 2 in the system will be huge, because it's going to be a lot less reactionary. These guys are going to know it cold. Be interesting to see what Tommy Eichenberg does. I think that Tommy is a fantastic player. He's one of my favorite players on the team, but I think if he leaves or stays, I don't think his draft stock's going to get any higher if he stays for another year, just because he kind of is what he is. He's a good, tough kid. He potentially play a long time in the league playing special teams and as a rotational linebacker. I think that he'll run and clock faster than most people would project. People probably think he's like a 5'0", 4'9" guy, but I've been told he's a 4'6" guy. So, if he can run a 4'6" and mid-late round guy easily for me, But if he came back with Steele, we have the makings of a really dynamic defense. If you got JT, Jack, Mike Hall, Tyleek, whoever we have filling in, Hero Canoe, some of these young guys on the line, and then if you have Steele and Tommy, and I think the hardest part about it, if Tommy would come back, is where does that put Cody Simon? Does Cody Simon hit the portal? Is he good with being a backup and playing sparingly again? I don't know. Like there's a lot of things where guys might be projecting that they're going to be having a bigger role next year. Then somebody makes a surprise move and comes back for a 5th year or a 6th year, and it kind of changes up the thoughts. Any thoughts on year 2 with Knowles, Nevada? Because I think that we're going to make an even bigger jump next year, just because these guys are going to know the system. I think potentially if we start Kai Stokes and Sonny Styles, we can be even better at safety, especially if Lathan comes back, plays free. You put Kai at, you can put Lathan pretty much anywhere. You put him at any of the 3 spots. Put Sonny at strong safety. Put Kai at free. Lathan at the nickel. I think, God, I mean that'd be a really talented back end. But what are your thoughts on year 2 with Knowles?
Yeah, I think it will show solid improvement. I think we had to remember that Rome was not going to be built in a day, and I just think the way that some people are reacting, you would think that the defense took a huge step back this year instead of taking a little step back, looking at the picture and seeing that it was actually a huge step forward. And I expect it to be another step forward next year. And I'm optimistic about the job he can do. And but to your point, JT and Jack need to start becoming JT and Jack. They came in as like the number 1 and number 5 player in the country, and let's just be honest, they haven't played like the number 1 and number 5 player in the country. They've been good, but they haven't been really good, and they need to be really good, and they can be really good because, like you said, Chase Young wasn't Chase Young when he first set foot on campus here at Ohio State. Took a huge leap between 2nd and 3rd year, and I wouldn't be shocked to see JT or Jack do the same thing.
No, I totally agree. I think if Jack settles in as a starting D end, and not the Jack, that would be huge. And again, like I thought Chase had a decent first 2 years at Ohio State, but that year in 19 was the year where he really went to the next universe. I mean, in 18, he was just kind of okay. I mean, people got to remember in 18, we were the worst defense maybe in Ohio State history, one of the worst. I mean, I remember you talking to me and saying, Kirk, I still remember this like yesterday, how many plays of over 70 yards have we given up? And you said, we're literally we're not just the worst team in the country at plays over 70 yards. We're the worst team in the history of college football, in terms of how many. I think it was like 60+ yard plays. And then Greg Schiano, that was Urban's last year. Greg Schiano gets the boot. You bring in Jeff Hafley, and I think Jeff Hafley is a good coach, but I think he benefited from having Okudah and Arnett and Sean Wade and Chase Young, and I mean we really had a talented crew. Pete Warner. Those guys are all in the NFL. Those guys are Jordan Fuller. That was, just a monstrously talented defense. And there were guys that got beat down the year before, and he got the structure right. He got those guys playing right. And those guys were all playing for NFL contracts, and they played fantastic, So I think that, JT and Jack are playing, they gotta really jump their level up to be high level 3 and out guys, and I think they both want to be 3 and out. They want to go to the NFL after next year, and they both have to improve their production and get to the quarterback flat out. They got to get to the quarterback more. So it'll be real interesting to see what else we do and what kind of leap they make. So I know I was closing this a minute ago. Any final words about it? I'm going to close it for real this time.
Just excited to see what happens with the Washington State potential transfer, and there's going to be a huge roster movement here over the next 90 days, and then more after the spring game. So see you guys all at BuckeyeScoop.com. We'll give you guys a front row seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, if you guys aren't part of, our community is just crazy right now. Like we are breaking stories. There is just so much analysis, so much content. Army All-American game. We're going to have Brandon Ennis and Cornell Tate. Hopefully on Thursday, we're going to have them on the SWO. We're going to interview them both, potentially JJ Smith as well. So we've got a ton of info. So if you guys have questions, any type of info you guys need, we can get it for you guys. We appreciate you guys. We are grinding like crazy. I mean, it has just been nuts. I mean, with the portal, we're expecting more guys to jump into the portal tomorrow. So it's really nonstop. It's really fun. I think Ryan Day knows that he's close and it's time to put the foot down on the accelerator and really go after and get some guys as we go into the second signing day and as the portal fills up with guys that are potential contributors. Because I think that, you know, you got to remember Alabama went out and got a guy from Vanderbilt to play left tackle, you know, and he did a really good job for them. And, you know, we got to go find a guy who's a lower level guy, played really well at the level he was at, then bring him to Ohio State and have him start and patch some holes. But I think our team's going to be fantastic next year. I think there's a big opportunity to win a national championship next year. We talk about that on Buckeye Scoop. So we're going to have some great stuff for you guys, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. So thank you guys. I hope you guys had a great time on this. I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. I'll see you guys on BuckeyeScoop.com. Thank you, Scoop family, who are already a part of BuckeyeScoop.com. I'm going to head to the message boards right now and talk about the Harbaugh stuff, the transfer portal stuff, some rumors that we're hearing. It is just absolutely crazy. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks. Let's go win a natty in 2023.